I have a lot of experience though, but I'm thinking about a young filmmaker coming in and trying to make a 90 page or 100-page script in 15 days. I mean, that's a lot to ask.
Hello there, and welcome back to the Disconnected. I am here with Lucky McKee, somebody that I've admired for quite some time. Lucky, I appreciate you saying yes to doing this.
Oh, no problem, man.
One of the main reasons that I reached out, obviously, is possibly one of the best boutique physical media releases of the year. May came out from Second Sight Films this year, and I'd love to dive into the release itself because you're on this all over it. How does it feel to have this giant chunk of incredibleness out there?
It feels the best perk of the whole deal is that nobody will ask me when is May coming out on Blu-ray, because that's the question I probably get asked more than anything on social media. When is May coming out on Blu-ray? And I'm stoked that it's Second Sight too, because I mean, like I'm a huge fan of just everything that label does. I mean, like that edition of Martin that they put out is just a jaw dropper. And it's nice working with them too, because they let me kind of peruse their catalog and they send me movies. So I get some nice. That's a nice perk. But it's cool, It's obviously Blu-ray is going to become more and more of a boutique thing for just kind of hardcore people like us, So it's nice to have a nice edition of the movie with beautiful artwork and when I was working with Philip Escott on it, we just tried to throw as much at it as possible, because it's like, who knows if this might be the only time it ever gets released on Blu-ray,
Right.
So we just kind of put everything we could into it, even just dug up some old, like, behind, fly on the wall footage from the set and stuff, which I still have. I have like 30 hours of that stuff. So
Jeez.
maybe there's even a full length documentary in it someday on a rainy day.
That'd be fun.
But yeah, it was fun, and it was, I haven't actually looked at all of the interviews yet. I've watched most of them, but it's really fun to go back and to listen to just all of these key creatives listening to their individual perspectives on how things went down on the movie.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Rashomon. Everybody remembers it all a little differently. So it's been pretty cool. It's a pretty cool document to have.
Well, that, and it's almost exactly 20 years retrospective at this point to be able to look back on everything. That's kind of incredible to get that type of a look back when you have everybody, for the most part, still with us and able to look back on how they've grown, not to mention how the film and its impact has grown over the years. Yeah.
It's a total trip. I was definitely quite a few pounds lighter and had no gray. And now look at me, I'm starting slowly turning into Gandalf.
Well, not to be the person that you just decried a little bit, but just to put a final nail in the coffin, can you share why it's been so long to get it released on Blu-ray, or what's going on with the Blu-ray in the States?
I don't know. I mean, it's the first, it's kind of like the first legit movie that I made, and definitely the first movie I made by myself.
Right.
So, I was starting out, and I didn't, I wasn't the producer, and I didn't have control, I don't have control over where it goes and what happens with it. And I just think that, it's built a lot of hardcore fans over the years, but it's not Cabin Fever, it's not one of these titles that has generated like a tremendous amount of business. So I don't know. Must not have. I guess Lionsgate doesn't feel like it's worth it, or I don't know. I have no idea. I don't really have any control over that. I don't know. I don't own the film. I just
after all of this, I really hope that there was some sort of obvious, like, no, we can't get the rights to this in the States, and we never will. So sorry. But when it's just a question mark, God, that's frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I think any filmmaker would love to be able to control every aspect of what goes on with their film, but it's just, especially when you're starting out, it's just not possible to have that kind of leverage. So
right.
Yeah.
Well, the 20-year retrospective, there's a couple things that didn't get into depth in the interview that you just did for the disc that I'd love to ask. Like, one of the main things, technology from 2003 till now is different worlds. I'd love to hear, like, if you could have the resources that you do now, what do you think technology wise could have been different if you were doing it now?
The set wouldn't have been as hot because we have LED lights now. I mean, we were kind of, we were in the last gasp of 20th century filmmaking, at that time. And, I think, I shot May, The Woods, and my Masters of Horror episode on 35 millimeter. And then, after that, this DP that shot May, Steve Yedlin, had kind of, in my mind, cracked the code on a lot of the new high def cameras that were coming out and got the quality up to, comparable to 35 millimeter. And we ran tests and stuff. And I was convinced. I was like, okay, this is the way it's going to be done from now on. I've shot on digital everything since. 35 millimeter is really fun to shoot on, but it's like, get with the times, it's like if I can get the same result and it makes a smoother post-production pipeline and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I could make May probably at the same scale, if not a little bit higher scale, for the same amount of money that it was made 20 years ago. That's I think I could totally pull that movie off. And, again, if I was to start that project now, I have a lot of experience under my belt, so I know how to get what I want a little bit easier. I've tried to evolve with the times. I'm not one of these guys banging the drum for 35 millimeter, everything. One of the things I think that was lost more than anything when digital came in is that in digital, everybody leaves the camera running all the time. Right. In 35, it was really, really precious. You've got a 500-foot load or 1,000-foot load on the camera, and you have a fixed amount of time. So there was something more precious about the feeling in the room when the camera was rolling, and that's missed. And Ryan and I talk about that a lot. Actually, there's this. I don't know. It's what we all signed up for was to shoot on film and stuff. So there is, it definitely pushes nostalgia buttons and stuff like that. But, when you're making independent films, you have to, use whatever tools give you an advantage. And these days it's the digital stuff, which I love, especially because I know people how to really, really get me the filmic look that that I like. So.
And I mean, May looks great for its time, especially because it was sort of this odd, just like you just referred to, this blending time of ending the 20th century, moving into digital. A handful of people were already shooting on, handheld DivX cameras or whatever. Yeah. And the way that May looks now, it feels almost like preserved. It's got that really authentic, stuck in time, really necessary look for the overall tone of the film, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, even one thing that we tried to do when we were making the film was not make it like of the minute or hip in terms of like the fashion or any of that kind of stuff, because we kind of wanted it to be a little murky about. We wanted to just kind of have it take place in kind of a little bit of a fairy tale sort of a place, So we tried as much as we could with the limited budget we had to make it in a way to where, you could watch it 10 years later, or you could say, is this movie from, what era is this movie from exactly? Right. Is this from the 90s or is this from, so that was definitely something we were conscious of when we were making it, to not be bending to whatever the current fashions or fads were of the day.
And watching it on a DVD for 20 years as we have been, that just adds to that authentic timelessness.
yeah, for sure.
One of the things that really is captured in May, which I don't know if I've heard you speak on this quality really, but it's a very awkward film on purpose. There's so many situations that are human in their awkwardness. They are authentic. There's something that most of us can relate to on a even granular scale for certain movements of the body. And I'm just curious, like, if that was something that was difficult to direct, because obviously it can come across as very inauthentic, and somehow there's nothing in this movie that doesn't feel like it was captured by somebody who is genuinely awkward.
It's not hard to do it when that's what you're experiencing every day. You know, like that movie is very, very much. It comes from the way I was feeling at the time. You know, I wrote the first draft when I was kind of at the tail end of college, my junior year of college. I wrote the first iteration of it and had made short films around that idea and stuff like that. And, you know, the May is very much my kind of, poor me, I'm all alone and this is my angst and all of that kind. You know, it's definitely a young person's film, you know, and all those feelings, you know, it's very, very personal. The movie. So I was really tapped into it, and then Angela, just off of reading the script, I mean, from our first meeting, I could tell that she could connect with that character in a really, really deep, meaningful way. And, you know, getting ready to shoot the film, it wasn't us sitting and saying the lines over and over again. It was us just talking about this stuff and talking about how it feels to, you know, what it's like to feel that way. And we really connected on that, you know. So, you know, by the time we got to filming, you know, she knew, you know, she just knew how to do it, you know. So
I guess that helps too when you have somebody that really gets the character that is supposed to be full
everything.
of the awkward
I mean,
side.
it's the totally true statement that like 90% of your work is done if you cast the right person, you know. And the other 5% is the working relationship, you know. Can you communicate with each other? And the other 5% is just, you know, like magic and hard work, you know. So, but we really, really, you know, we nailed it when we cast Angela. That, you know, we were putting our, you know, we were in good shape right off the bat with her. You could tell the first day of filming, you know, that it was going to work.
Well, and one of the things that you look for on sets is good chemistry. And with Angela and Jeremy, you want there to be able to be good chemistry, but also this fraught chemistry eventually. And so their interactions, was that obviously it was very personal for you, but was it something that has you know, developed throughout the set, or was it just a natural thing for both of them? Because Jeremy
they just looked and felt right together. I mean, you know, towards the end of the auditioning process, we had it down to Angela and Jeremy and Alicia Cuthbert and Will Estes. Will Estes and Alicia Cuthbert were just starting out. They were young, but I was like, wow, these guys are going places. They're really, really gifted. And obviously now we can see, you know, Will is huge on Blue Bloods and Alicia has done tons of great stuff as well. But Alicia fit with Will and Angela fit with Jeremy. You know, when you looked at the two of them sitting together on screen, it just felt right, you know? So, if Alicia had ended up being my choice, it would have been a totally different movie. I think it would have been a really cool movie. Maybe even leaning more into like the kind of a fairy tale, like, you know, kind of broken princess sort of feeling or something. But and Angela just, you know, at that time, you know, in my mind, she just got it in on such a molecular level, you know. And then having Sisto next to her, you know. And it also gave us all a lot of confidence because they were more experienced than the other actors. And just, you know, that decision-making process is really tough because you know, no matter which way you go, you're going to be kicking yourself down the road for not casting that person, you know? I always feel really bad about that. But, you know, I had invited, you know, when I didn't cast Alicia as May, I invited her to play Polly and she didn't go for it. And with Will, I brought him in to play Adam's roommate, just so I could work with him because I really liked him and I thought he was really special, you know. So all these kind of various things happen when you're putting something together. It sucks. It sucks when you have to make choices like that. But you know, I'm really, really, really happy with the results. So.
Well, and Sisto has certainly been through a lot, but man, I think he's. Maybe you know, this and 6 Feet Under are two of the things that he just shines in.
He's on a lot of those cop shows now and stuff like that too. And I was helping take care of my dad this summer, and that's all he watches are those cop shows. It was fun. It was fun to see grown up Sisto like in full, like, you know, dad mode like the rest of us. So it was pretty interesting to see him after all these years.
You brought up Masters of Horror.
Yeah.
It was very early in your career, and to be associated with something called Masters of Horror,
Yeah,
did
that was a
that?
trip.
I was about to say, did that give like this immense amount of pressure? Because obviously you were still so young and going through a lot and finding yourself. Was it something that like almost stunted you in a moment because you were forced to be humble?
I was just excited, man, and I was terrified,
Yeah.
going in that I was going to drop the ball, like standing alongside, all these guys that were literally the reason a huge part of the reason that I got into making movies in the first place. I mean, I'm just working alongside just straight up idols,
Yeah.
to arrive there and be in the off, they gave me a little office and stuff, and to go into the production office, and there's Joe Dante like shooting pickups for his episode that he finished, and he's a super nice guy. And then Mick is a really lovely person, and Toby Hooper was at that point was already a really good friend of mine, and just getting to see them do their thing like made me like work really, really hard. I mean, I storyboarded that thing by myself within an inch of my life. I think I've posted some of those storyboards at some point or another on one of my social media pages. They're hilarious because I'm an awful, awful artist. But I just worked really, really hard, like that was the thing. I just tried to keep my nose down and just do the best work I possibly could. And also just try to lean into why maybe they even chose me to do an episode.
Right.
It was like that quirkiness and that those awkward relationship kind of moments and stuff like that. So and they let me rewrite the script and change the main character from a man into a woman, so I could cast Angela and everything. And it was a really special experience. I felt 10 foot tall and bulletproof when I was making that. It was just like it just felt on top of the world. It was so fun.
I love to hear that.
Yeah.
How do you feel like you responded as a filmmaker afterwards when the relief of it was behind you and there was projects coming next?
I felt good about it. I know that I pretty much, I mean, beyond kind of where it goes at the end, I kind of made like this awkward little romantic comedy instead of really, I don't know if I totally nailed the assignment, but I was really happy with it from a personal place, yeah. And then it was on to, trying to make more movies again. I don't know how I felt, I knew that I had learned enough from May and my experience shooting the woods to where I knew what kind of worked and what didn't. So it was a lot more organized, and I felt like I achieved what I set out to do, which was maybe the first time that had happened. And now, I look back at it now and it's like, yeah, I'd cut 5 minutes out of this, or I'd tweak this or tighten that or whatever. But at that moment, I did exactly what I set out to do, and I hadn't done that yet, so it gave me a lot of confidence going forward.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
So that kind of fits in not necessarily traditional anthology, but you've done a few of those. Anthology.
Yeah, they've added up over the years. It's funny.
Is that something that's always been close to you, or is that just something where the opportunities have presented themselves?
They've presented themselves, and it's just fun. It's not as daunting as whereas when you're making a film, it's like you're making like an album. You're making a short film, it's like you're just doing like a song.
A track.
You're doing a single or a poem as opposed to a book. Which is really, really fun, and it's a good challenge, and it keeps you sharp. So when I got the chance to do Tales of Halloween, I was super stoked and honored that they invited me to do that, and I tried to I came in really late to the party on that one. Truth be told, I was probably replacing somebody that had fallen out or something like that. And they flew me out and let me kind of do my thing. But because I was so late to the party, they were already filming segments when they invited me to do one. I had to come up with something that nobody else had done. And a lot of the fun ideas that already, kind of ideas that I think you would naturally think of with a Halloween anthology or whatever. Right. A lot of those ideas were already taken. So I did what I always do, and I just dug into what I was feeling in that moment. And at that time, I was wondering whether or not I should or would want to be a father.
Interesting.
So that you know, with the couple that can't have a kid, and there's kids showing up trick or treating, and that kind of creating, you know, making this witch character kind of sprout from this woman. All that was coming from a very personal place. So, and it was the first thing that I had written by myself since May, you know, which was kind of interesting. It wasn't an adaptation. It didn't start as somebody else's script. It was something that just kind of came straight from my guts, you know.
So, did it help you find your answer?
Yeah, I'm a dad now.
Yep.
And I'm really happy about that. You know, didn't have my kid until I was just after I turned 40, which is a little late. But man, I can't imagine my life. I can't imagine my life now without having had the experience of having this great kid. It really is the best thing, you know.
It is.
A kid, yeah.
I've got two of my own, and I am curious because for me, when I had kids, it changed the way I viewed some of these films. Some of these films that I've been seeing for decades. What is it?
Yeah.
How has it made things different for you?
It's made me a lot more sensitive. It's harder to take the hard, you know, some of the more hardcore movies now that I'm a dad. It's harder. It's a lot harder for me to take violence in movies. I always love violent movies, but you know, I love horror. I love stuff that goes dark. I love stuff that is kind of unflinching and showing how monstrous people can be. You know, because I think people need to see that. I think people can relate to that. I think people see that in their own daily lives in various ways.
Oh yeah.
But it's harder for me to watch. It's a lot harder for me to watch that stuff. You know. And yeah, that's the biggest change, you know, and obviously when you have a kid, you're also more limited on what you can watch and when you can watch it. So the amount of stuff I watch has been greatly reduced, since I had a kid, but that's okay. You know?
Yeah, I keep saying I can't wait until mine are 14 and 15 and everything can ramp back up again.
Oh, yeah, I know. Well, that's also another thing I'm really looking forward to. Just as the older he gets, starting to introduce him to things. It's really, really fun to introduce somebody to the great films.
I have an 8-year-old and a 7-year-old, and my 8-year-old is starting to ask, "Can we watch Back to the Future again?" And I'm just like, "Oh, it's here! It's happening." That's gotta
make you feel good. Yeah, that's gotta make you feel
it's
really
not,
good.
Let's watch YouTube or something. It's let's watch Back to the Future, and that's a victory.
Thankfully, my kid hasn't gotten into like the big superhero craze, which I don't know why. We haven't been like keeping him away from it or anything like that. He's just not interested. It's just kind of interesting. Because I'm growing pretty tired.
I think the world is
superhero movie. Yeah, apparently so. It looks like a lot of these things are starting to tank finally. And man, I was a comic book kid. I would have been probably in heaven when I was 10, 12 years old. But it's not even the fact that they're making comic book movies. It's just that they're making the same fucking movie over and over again. Yeah. You know, it's always the same story. You know. And nothing's at stake because it's like they're not going to kill Spider-Man.
Right.
You know, they want to make 10 more of them, you know? So dramatically, it's less interesting, you know? I think that there's so much more that could be done with some of the great comics that have been made over the years. And everything has just stayed in such a narrow lane, you know? Very rarely do you get something as bold and just totally wild as like what Ang Lee tried to do with the Hulk, you know? I mean, that was fucking amazing, you know? And people just kind of dismissed it, and it's too weird, you know? It's like, well, come on, man.
It's Ang Lee, yeah.
I don't know why people want to watch the same movie over and over again. It baffles me.
Well, and it's so blatant, like right now, especially this current, iteration phase, whatever we're calling it. Every other film has the word something verse in it. And it's everything's just the multiverse. Yeah. Come on, let's do something different.
Yeah, multiverse and Groundhog Day, and you know, like it's all the same thing over and over again. It's pretty frustrating. It makes it hard to get things made too, you know, because if you're doing anything that's any bit, you know, like I just had a script, you know, that I poured my heart and soul into for like a year and a half, and it looked like it was going to go, and and all of a sudden they were just kind of, they just kind of backed off of it all of a sudden. It's just, I guess it's not hitting the targets that those, the type of movie people feel like it's supposed to be. It's not hitting all those beats in the right order, or I don't know, I'm really proud of it, and I will get it made, but it's just frustrating if you're not, if you're not in that paint by numbers category. It's really hard. It can be really difficult to get cool stuff made.
So that's modern cinema as a whole. How do you think the modern horror realm is compared to, say, 2003?
I don't watch a lot of the stuff that's being made now. I've made the last couple things I've made have been extremely low budget, and I see the way these things are getting made and the ridiculously short amount of time that they're made with, and I can watch a trailer for a lot of these things and kind of know what I'm in for. So
the entire story.
I haven't been making the effort with horror. It's frustrating to see stuff that's like, okay, I know they shot this in 12 days, I know, and it's no slight against the filmmakers. It's what's available, it's what these things are being made for now. But at a certain point, it's like, you can't shoot. It's really hard to shoot a good movie in 10 days, when I last made one, the model was 15 days, and it's like, I managed to pull it off. I have a lot of experience though, but I'm thinking about a young filmmaker coming in and trying to make a 90-page or 100-page script in 15 days. I mean, that's a lot to ask, It's just unfortunate that that there's no money to make the stuff. I guess they're not making enough money off of them, or I don't know what it is, but a lot of the stuff is like so deprived of the ingredients needed to make a good movie, that it's hard for me to keep to dig further into it. So unfortunately, I'm not. I'll see the occasional thing. I think Hulu is putting out some really solid genre movies. The last several solid horror films I've seen were what was the one with it starts out as like a date movie. Oh god, the name is totally escaping me. Fresh? Is it Fresh?
Oh yeah.
It starts out as a date movie, and then the guy traps the girl in his house, and he's trying to like eat her piece by piece. Fucking fantastic movie. And just watched No One Will Save You a couple weeks ago, which I thought was really beautiful, and Prey, and I don't know, something interesting is going on over at Hulu, because they're cranking out some really top notch stuff. But they have budgets.
Yeah, that's the difference.
Which I'm very jealous of.
And not to make it political, but it seems to me like it's the shrinking of the middle that is sort of mimicking class, and also in budgets, because it's either next to nothing, or we'll give you every penny that we can possibly find. Yeah,
it's crazy. And a lot of the mid-range stuff, and even like reasonably low budget films, a lot of that's been sucked into television. It's where those stories are being told. Like the script I was just telling you about a little bit earlier. There is plenty of that kind of stuff being made on television, but there's not a lot of features being made. That are like these like weird like 70s style indie character dramas, with genre elements peppered in and stuff like that. It's like, just watch Ozark or watch Fargo or watch, a lot of that stuff's being done on television. But I love the complete and compact nature of a feature film. It's mostly what I've done over the course of my career. It's really fun to work in television, but it's much more of a team sport. It's not quite as it's creatively, I don't know, there's something more personally satisfying about making a feature film, because it's such a time commitment, and it's and it's all focused on just telling something from beginning to end, as opposed to just jumping into the middle of something and telling a little piece of it. Television is rewarding for different reasons. It's fun to be on a team. So but yeah, features are different. So
funny enough, you mentioned coming into the middle of something. I got to bring up The Woman at least once. This is the German 4K release of all three of
that's a
the
good
films
one.
together.
That's a good one.
Lovely release. How was that? You know, going into something and making a sequel where you weren't involved in the first one, and bringing you and everything that makes Lucky to the second film. Like, how did that? Was that personal for you, just like everything else?
The woman ended up, was able to transform that into a personal experience. I was already pretty good friends with Ketchum because I had optioned some of his stuff, and I had attempted to make his novel Red, and that kind of blew up in my face halfway through shooting. Somebody else finished the film, which was just crushing. I thought I wasn't even going to make movies again after that.
Wow.
And then I was trying to get another one of his novellas made, a novella called The Passenger. And I hit up this producer that had just done Offspring with him and was like, do you think you might want to help put together The Passenger with me? And he's like, I can't do The Passenger, but I do want to make a sequel to this thing that I just made. Do you want to come up to New York and look at it and talk about ideas? I was like, okay, I'll take a free trip to New York. Went up there and met with him and Ketchum, and kind of, I got brushed up on the material. I read the book that they had just adapted, and they screened the film for me. And then I just sat down to dinner with Ketchum and Andrew Van Houten and pitched them, where I would take the story next. And I wanted to make the film in such a way to where you didn't have to see the one before it in order for it to be a complete experience. But also not shy away from the fact that this is picking up where something left off. So
Right.
that was tricky. I feel like I pulled that off. I think you can watch that film just as its own thing.
I agree.
You don't really need the movies on either side of it. Fun movies, don't get me wrong, but it's my, and I knew it was going to be low budget, so I demanded Final Cut, and I demanded, I said, you got to let me use the people that I want to use, and I have a really weird approach to the music I've always wanted to try, and this is the way I want to do it, which was really unconventional. And I had been living in the middle of the, kind of like where the cliques are living. I was living in the middle of nowhere, in a house just kind of in the middle of the woods. And a lot of the feelings and experiences that I had living out there kind of found their way into the film. Obviously, I wasn't getting abused on a daily basis like that. But yeah, that, and I didn't realize how personal the woman was until kind of years after making it. And now I look at it and I'm like, oh my God, that's what I was talking about. So yeah, that one just kind of magically worked out, but I was given room, and Ketchum was a brilliant collaborator. I was really nervous about writing a story with him because he was so much more experienced than me. And I thought he might just kind of be dismissive of my ideas, but that wasn't the case at all. I mean, we were just totally, it was just such a clean, egoless, creative collaboration, and to have him on set through all that was just really special. And that was another one of those movies where I felt like I actually accomplished what I set out to do, for good or for bad. If anybody had a problem with the movie, they could point right at me, because there was nothing preventing me from telling that story the way I wanted to tell it, And a lot of times there are those obstacles when you're making stuff with other people's money. So,
man, I think that kind of answers this long quest that I don't even know that I had, because I watched May 1st, obviously, years and years and years ago, but it wasn't until I saw The Woman that I went, damn, Lucky is not just May. He's got something that I am going to love no matter what he touches. And
oh, thanks.
I think it was something about that when I watched that one, it was just, I could feel you through it, I think.
Yeah. Wow. There's a lot of, I grew up in the sticks, man, I grew up around a bunch of good old boys, and I grew up around, very isolated, so that, a lot of that stuff kind of came, found its way into that material. They that old thing where they say, write what you know. It's like,
right.
That's the only way to go. You got to write about whatever, you got to write about the things that you observe, and the things that you're feeling, and the things that you're, hopeful about and frightened of. And, you just, it's always best to just kind of tap right into where you're at in that given moment,
Wow. Yeah, that helps a lot. Yeah, for anybody that hasn't seen it, the woman I think is the May is the obvious choice here, but the woman I think is a little underappreciated for what it really
Oh,
pulls off.
thanks, man.
It's incredible.
I'm proud of that one.
As you should be. It's especially for stepping into a what ends up being a trilogy eventually. It's this singular piece, but it fits everything so wonderfully.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I would. The another one of the perks that came out from doing the woman is that I got to start writing books with Ketchum, which was really awesome. We ended up writing 3 novels together and some short stories and stuff. And man, I really missed that guy. We had a lot of fun making stuff up together.
That's great. That's important too. You've collaborated with so many important people throughout the years. There's a lot of people that have, touched your work, and your work has touched their work. And you're still friends with Ryan Johnson. Is there anybody that you feel has had like the most tremendous impact on how you create today?
Oh gosh, I don't know. You take something from everybody that you come into contact with. I've learned a ton. I've learned from Ryan ever since we were kids. Since we were teenagers. Yeah. And we've always helped each other on each other's projects. And the thing that was cool about us, our group of friends in film school, our filmmaking little posse, was that we weren't competitive with each other because we knew that everybody kind of did different, everybody kind of had a different approach to things, so we only kind of supported each other and encouraged each other. And if one person got a door open here, we'd try to sneak the other person through it, as opportunities presented themselves over the years. But, man, I've worked with and just, come into contact with so many beautiful artists over the years. I take a little something from all of them. They become these voices in your head when you're working. What would so and so think about this? Right. So yeah, I've been really lucky in that regard. And film is a collaborative medium. And that's one of the things I love the most about it. Is that creative exchange that happens, as a director too, you get to have a bunch of one-on-one relationships with all of these people, and that little creative spark between you is it's just a really neat thing to kind of try to level each other up with ideas,
right. I'm sure there has to be a point of pride. How does it feel seeing Ryan go into different galaxies and everything nowadays?
Oh, it's incredible. And, the best thing about it is he's a good person, and he's always been a good person. He's remained a good person. And it's just neat to see good people do well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and he's a real friend, He's a person that will answer your phone calls and talk to you about nonsense if that's what's on the agenda for the day. He's and just be there for you in tough times too. He's just a really, really good friend.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
What brought us together originally was me posting about physical media, and you've already indicated that you are a physical media person. Have you always been into physical media?
Yeah, pretty much. It's the only thing I really accumulate or collect. I was a comic book kid when I was younger, and collectibles of different sorts growing up. But for me now, it's all about the library. That's the only kind of frivolous spending in my life is when waiting for that Martin Blu-ray to come out, and just being so thrilled when it shows up, or I just love putting stuff on the shelf, and streaming is great, and it gives you instant access to a lot of an unbelievable amount of things. But the discs just look better, they sound better, and I know that they're there. There's just something comforting and pleasing about just perusing your library and what should I watch tonight, making additions, like getting my David Lean section kind of filled out, or that's been really fun, so I've usually got movies showing up like several times a week. It's the only thing I waste money on.
Thank goodness we're not alone.
But I can write it off, right? So that's good.
It's research.
It's for taxes. Yeah.
Other than Martin, what are some bigger releases over the last couple of years that you've appreciated a lot?
God, the last couple of years, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think of some of the better things. There's so many.
Yeah.
Like I just got To Live and Die in LA in 4K, which I'm really excited to check out because I haven't seen that since I saw it on 35 millimeter at film school. I'm curious to look at that. Oh man, they're just stacking up. I got some Powell and Pressburger movies. I've got
Nice.
I don't know if you've ever seen any of the Powell and Pressburger movies, but they're favorites of mine. One of their earlier films, Edge of the World, is filling up pretty soon, and I don't know if you've ever seen Twilight Time's 10 Rillington Place Blu-ray, but that is just a stunningly gorgeous transfer, and I'm just all about the transfer, getting like the nicest transfers.
Are you into UHD at home as well?
Yeah. I stepped into the 4K world about a year or two ago, and it's really great. And I had a lot of people that know better technical things than know more about technical things than I do tell me that there was not a significant difference between 4K and Blu-ray, but I totally disagree. I can really see a difference, and I'm watching it on my setup at home. I don't know if it's because I have a shitty setup or what, but I think these 4K discs, I mean, it's like owning a print, It is. It's like owning a print of your favorite film. To have like a 4K of Carrie, is incredible. Or Criterion putting out One False Move in 4K, like, holy shit, I never even thought that movie would see Blu-ray, It's
a big deal.
To have like that gorgeous of a transfer of that movie. And also like the Fulci movies, it's like to have like a 4K Blu-ray of the New York Ripper. Are you fucking kidding me? It's like, when I first saw that film, we were buying, bootleg VHSs that were just dubs of Japanese laser discs, and to see that film looking better than it probably looked when they released it originally, because the registration's all locked in, and the color grading is just wonderful. Like, it's just the best, man. It's the best. Yeah, that's one of my big obsessions. And it's just fun to discover stuff, It's like when these certain, the go-to labels like the Vinegar Syndromes or Kino or whatever, whenever they have their big sales, it's like I'll get stuff that I've always wanted in my library or that I wanted to upgrade format or whatever. But I always try to leave like room for like a couple like blind buys.
Smart.
Just like, oh, that, what the hell, this serial killer movie, that was shot in Northern California in the 70s. I'm from that area. I want to see what that shit looked like back then, stuff like that. Every once in a while you come across a dud, but especially with those real boutique labels that don't print a lot of discs, you can usually sell them back on eBay for about what you paid for them, if not more. It's true. They're out of print by that time, so then you can, try to go find something else that you like. So,
is there a blind buy recently that super surprised you, and it was one that you really appreciated?
Oh God! Oh, I watched this Australian film. I got it from Vinegar Syndrome called Snapshot.
Yeah.
That had Hugh, the guy that was the bad guy in the original Mad Max, Hugh Keays-Byrne, is that his name?
Yeah, something like that.
He had a little part in it, and it was just a really interesting movie. The movie didn't make any sense at all, but it had this great vibe about it. It's like, I'm really a sucker from anything from the 70s, and they keep digging up stuff that I've never heard of. It's so cool. Like the 70s and the 30s are kind of those two eras. I can usually find something to pull from movies of the 30s or the 70s for some reason. Like those are kind of my sweet spots. But I try, and when I watch stuff, I try to rotate through the decades. Like I'll start in the the 19 teens, and it's like, okay, I haven't watched anything from the 50s for a while, or I haven't watched anything from the 20s for a while. I haven't watched anything, and obviously the stuff from my lifetime, like the mid 70s up to now, I've seen more of that stuff, but I try to push myself to watch 70s, 60s, 50s, 40s, 30s, 20s, and, and even just some of the first films that were ever made. Cause you can pull from all those, you can pluck great tools from all those eras,
Yeah. Are you buying boutique releases from all over the world, or are you mostly staying with UT?
Yeah,
US
I'm region free.
Smart.
You kind of gotta be, if there's certain things you want. Like there was this, I think now you can get it here, but like for a long time, like you couldn't get Possession, and you couldn't get The Driver. There was a lot of movies that you couldn't get in the States. Yep. So it's just like, fuck, man, So when I decided to upgrade to 4K, I decided to get an all region 4K player, and man, it's just so great.
Beautiful.
Because there's a Powell and Pressburger movie called The Small Back Room that I'd been trying to find for years and years, and Criterion had put out a DVD at a certain point, but they're out of print, so people are selling them for like $150, and I'm not paying $150 for a fucking DVD. And then, I found like an English release that's the same transfer that Criterion did, and $15 later, I have that movie I want, and I've got a player that will play it.
That's a victory.
Yeah. Region free is the way to go. Any serious movie watcher needs a region free player, I think.
The 1930s you brought up, were you always into those, or was that stuff that you got into as you were older?
It's grown in importance to me as I've gotten older. I would say, I don't know, like probably about 10, 15 years ago, I really started diving a lot deeper into the, pre-late 60s movies. And, it's like I saw a Barbara Stanwyck movie called Babyface. So it's like, okay, I got to watch as many. Barbara Stanwyck just blew my fucking mind. I got to watch as many Barbara Stanwyck movies as I can. Or I saw 20th Century, and I thought Carol Lombard was fucking hilarious. So now I got to watch a bunch of Carol Lombard movies. And, it's like you pick a filmmaker, you pick an actor, and you just start exploring, During the pandemic, I really got into silent movies. I felt like a lot of the modern stuff, so much modern stuff is shot in like this shaky cam, like docudrama sort of, we're just catching what's happening sort of a thing that they're I like composition, and I like it when somebody builds a beautiful set and displays it and places the person just right, or, so I, in my kind of dive into silent films, I was getting like a nutrition that I felt like I was lacking. Like I was like, there's something very purely cinematic about silent films. And I discovered the Joseph von Sternberg movies, starting with a silent gangster picture he made called Underworld that just blew my fucking mind. Just on a cinematic level, just visually what he was doing and how emotional those images were, and got on a Joseph von Sternberg kick. So it just, you know how it is. you just get dragged from one thing to another. And I recently scored the big Ingmar Bergman Criterion set. Somebody sold a used one on eBay, and I got a ridiculous deal on it. I just kind of threw like a Hail Mary bid on the thing, and the guy went for it. I was fucking shocked. So now I have I don't know how many, 50 fucking Bergman movies to watch, and I've only seen 10 of his movies over the course of my life, So that's probably gonna be all of 2024 is going through all those Bergman movies. That'll be really fun.
Well, and they're programmed really well. That's a pretty magnificent set. Yeah,
do you have that one?
I have had it. I have literally bought it twice already.
Oh, really? Did you watch them in the order that they curated it? That you did.
The festival order, I think, is the best way to go.
Really? Okay. Because I was like, I don't know. My natural inclination is always just to watch the stuff in the order it was made, so I can watch how the film progresses and evolves over the course of their career.
Somebody else I trust, they had said, don't do chronological, do the festival order, and it works very well. Okay. They flow in a way that makes logical sense more so than just compositional sense. Okay.
I'll think about it. I'm not sure yet. We're kind of it's just the world is so bleak these days. We're just like, I don't know if we want to get into some of these heavy ass Bergman movies.
Yeah, so that's a good point.
Probably gonna wait until after the new year to get crack into those babies. But I got stacks of things I need to watch. Don't they pile up on you after a while? It's like, fuck, man, why am I buying more stuff? If I could turn this camera right now. I mean, you've got your 2 watch stack. Yeah. That ain't nothing.
Literally, and that's one of 6 stacks around me at the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
What are some favorites you'd love to see on Blu-ray or 4K that don't have a good release?
Oh God, a lot of the dream ones, like One False Move was a big one for me. Martin was a big one for me. I'm really excited about Cujo coming out on 4K. I think that's one of my favorite horror films.
Yeah.
I just think that is a perfect film. I'm very, very excited about that one coming up. I'd like to see Martin Scorsese's first movie, Who's That Knocking at My Door, come at least to Blu-ray, because I think there's a lot of great stuff in that. I'd like to have more than a DVD of The Small Back Room. I think it's one of the most underrated Powell and Pressburger movies. I mean, everybody talks about Black Narcissus and The Red Shoes and Colonel Blimp, maybe to a certain extent, but I think The Small Back Room is one of their best. Not that, I mean, those other ones are, I love all their films, but some of them kind of sit on the sidelines a little bit.
Right.
Trying to think of what else. There's just it's kind of endless, I'm amazed that I have the New Kids on Blu-ray, the Sean Cunningham movie. It's like, fuck, this is amazing. Like, I was so stoked when they put that out on Blu-ray. I thought it's just the kind of movie you think might never get that treatment.
Well, one that we've been wishing for a long time. May is finally available. Everybody needs to pick this up from Second Sight. Incredibly comprehensive release. Lucky, I just want to say thank you. This has been an incredibly delightful conversation, and you're amazing.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Maybe we can do it again sometime.
Right on.
Good luck with what you're working on. Hopefully somebody picks up that script soon.
Yeah, thank you. We'll keep your fingers crossed for me.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you for watching The Disconnected. On the way out, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel, that you've liked the video, and that you've copied the link to be able to share it with someone else that may appreciate this.